What's happening now across the Niagara frontier? News stories, old stories, stuff you know about and stuff you'd never believe. It's the Niagara Hub Soapbox with Craig Avery.
Well, good morning. It's April 8th and it's snowing out. So we thought we'd have a little fireside chat with a good friend, Jeff Willaims, who is now serving as Judge Angelo Morinello's campaign manager in his quest to be our 145th Assemblyman of 145th District. Jeff, where you been? What are you doing? Jeff is very involved in the political scene over the years, and we haven't seen you in a while. Well, we see you, but what's up with the campaigns here?
Well, they propped me up and dusted me off, and I got a call from an old friend, and Judge Morinello called and said, I'm going to run for Assembly, and I said, well, if you're going to run for Assembly, do you need me in? He said, I want you in. And I said, I do it. So I decided to jump back onto the trail, much to my wife's chagrin. And we're having some fun and walking around and meeting some new people and reacquainting with some old friends. And 14 years ago, when Judge Morinello decided to run for city court judge, we ran a great campaign. We had a lot of fun. And I ran that campaign as well. And we had a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy, and this campaign is like that times 5, because the people that are coming out of the woodwork to support him it's been phenomenal.
It's funny, as you say, I'm going to do it. What's involved? A lot of people say, well, yeah, we got this guy's running, there's his campaign, but what are actually the functions? What have you got to do to get this election?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts. I mean, there's moving parts from social media to understanding all of the issues in the entire district, not just the city of Niagara Falls. I mean, the district starts in Grand Island, moves into the city of Niagara Falls, goes to Wheatfield, North Tonawanda, the town of Niagara, town of Lewiston, and as far east as Cambria. And so when you're looking at a district like that, there are farm interests, there are urban interests, there are suburban interests, and so there's a lot of different aspects to the campaign that you have to bring together to create a message that talks about, first of all, his experience, which is enormous, okay, as a private businessman, as an attorney, as a judge. He's done almost everything you could possibly do, and his resume is phenomenal. And so that part of it's easy, because when you have a good candidate, you can create a message, to show people how experienced and honest he is. And then you have to balance the other interests, and there are parties and political there's minor parties like the Conservative Party and the Independence Party and the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and in New York, all of those individual parties are also part of the process, and so sometimes balancing just even personalities can be tough.
I think you might have an assistance here with the presidential campaign going as it is, because I believe there's more people interested for the first time in their lives really looking into this whole thing and how the process works between the media and the craziness going out.
Sure.
So now people understand the party affiliations and what happens that jostle around and so forth. But the assembly, what's the function of the person that takes this seat, and what is it that he can do for the farmers and the business people and the residents of this area?
Sure. The New York State Assembly is a body, much like the House of Representatives, for the U.S. government. So there's a New York State Senate, of course, and a New York State Assembly. I don't want to get too basic, but
let's get basic. I'm basic.
Okay, well, there you go. So, the Assembly is the closest state representative to the people. Okay, so he's truly the voice. The state senator represents a much larger district, much more diverse, much greater, and so being the closest voice to the people, you really need to have someone like Judge Morinello, who keeps his ear to the ground, who understands the issues, who can bring them forward and advocate for them in state government. Because really, truly, an assembly member is an advocate. That's all. I mean, is truly our advocate in state government. And we need to have an advocate that understands how to speak, that understands how to talk to people, that understands how to, to understand their concerns and as a reflection of them. Last night I went to Pints for Progress. We were together with Judge Morinello, and it was a really interesting night, and we met a young man. Actually, he won. It was a boxer. Aspire Boxing, I think, was the group that won. And we met a young man, and he came up to Judge Morinello, and I couldn't believe what I'd heard. And this is the second time this has happened. He told me that he changed his life. And I was blown away. I mean, you changed your life. How, right? I mean, like, when someone says that, and you're like, oh, Jeff, come on. He changed my life. But he told Judge Morinello that he gave him a second chance. And when he was a sitting judge, this young man came in front of him, and he talked to him, and because he was in a little trouble, and Judge Morinello said he was in drug court, and he believes that through that process, the drug court process, that it changed his life. And actually, the proof is that he was in front of a whole group of people last night trying to create a boxing program for young kids to get them off the street, and basically paying it forward. So, and this is the second time in 2 weeks that we've had the same experience.
And you're getting the angel chorus in your background going, ooh.
I know, but it's so hard. It's so hard not to be excited about it, because you don't see this. I've run probably 70 campaigns at all levels of government across the state. I used to work for the Assembly Republican Conference. I traveled all over the state running campaigns. I've worked for so many assembly members and so many state senators, and I've run congressional races. I mean, I've worked for a lot of people, but I've never had the experience that I'm having on this campaign, or like we did 14 years ago. I mean, and that's why I came back. That's why I said I'd do it, because it makes me actually not as jaded. Right. Because when you're in this business, you get a little jaded, and you're just kind of, and it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, maybe we can make a difference. Maybe we can do something.
He's a great guy. We all love him. We're good friends. He's running against a guy with experience. John Soretto's a great guy, and I always say, for Niagara Hub, I always say, Chris, make sure you're there. When Soretto starts talking, run the camera, because it's always going to be animated, it's going to be heartfelt, it's going to be fun. And
sure.
And so you got a guy like that in office, and again, I don't follow what they've done and what they haven't done as much, but how do we get a good guy like Angelo and someone that's liked by John like that? Can't we all get together? Or what's happening?
Well, John Soretto is a nice guy. There's no question about it. I worked on his first campaign when he switched the first time to become a Republican. So first the guy's a Democrat, then he becomes a Republican, ran a campaign. He narrowly beat Mike Johnson in Lewiston for county legislature. Right. Wow. Served in the county legislature as a Republican, became a Republican assembly member, was as Republican as they come. He was wearing flag pins and walking with Republicans, and, then he became a Tea Party Republican when, the movement was fashionable. Then all of a sudden he becomes a Democrat, and he's taking pictures, with Democrats and, passing budget bills that he never would have supported last year. So you could be a really nice guy with no compass, or I don't know if it's just he does whatever people tell him to do.
What's the difference between reaching across the aisle and really, I don't know. I mean, how do we interpret that, I guess?
Well, I don't know how to interpret it. It's baffling. It makes no sense, but it's truly I've seen a lot of politicians like John Soretto, and they look around, look which way the wind's blowing, and that's what they do. And that's, this seemed to me like he wanted the easy way out in a presidential year, because there are more Democrats than Republicans in this district. Didn't think there was a Republican that could challenge him. So he switched to become a Democrat because he just wanted a free ride. And that's what this whole thing seems to be.
All right, so let's talk about Judge Morinello.
I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
mean
right.
to-
Well, and I got off on the track too, but you want to know. Well, this guy looks good at the ribbon cuttings. This is cool. I don't. I don't
I'm as
see
much
the
as
inner
disappointed
stuff,
in John Soretto as I am energized by Angela Morinello. So,
all right.
I mean, if you really want to, it's more of a disappointment than anything, because you hope the people that you were supporting in your life were good people. And
Sure.
he turned out not to be one.
Sure.
That's all.
Judge Morinello's gotten himself involved in a few things, just as a private citizen at this point, as a retired judge, where he helped out trying to just figure out a solution to the methadone clinic, as opposed to many of us just complaining about it.
Sure.
He said, "Hey, I got a solution. Let me make a couple phone calls." He calls his old college buddy Carl Palladino, and that's cool. I've always said anyone in a political position should use relationships. Relationships is the key to any business or life or whatever.
No
and I don't
question.
see many of them using relationships. I see Judge Morinello using his relationships.
Sure.
And I think the methadone, just for him to get involved, was cool.
Well, and that's his wheelhouse, Craig, too. He looks at a situation, right? And he says, okay, how can I help? How can I figure out a way to move this off the dime? So everyone was complaining about it. They didn't want it here, and this was the wrong place, but no one did anything.
Right.
So he said, hey, listen, this is probably not the right thing to do, but I'm going to get in the middle of this thing, because I think it's important, first of all, to find a place for it, okay, because it serves a purpose and a need, and to make sure that it's the right place, okay? So the only way to do that is through a lightning bolt sometimes, okay? You have to find the places where it doesn't belong first,
Right.
before you find the place that it does. And he did. He picked up the phone and made a phone call to the landlord, who was Carl Palladino. Carl said, listen, if there's another place for us to go, if there's another place for them to go, and they want to get out of their lease, I'll let them.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a huge gesture by a landlord. I'm a landlord, I know. Okay, I mean, it's not easy to let someone out of their
For a long
lease,
time,
especially
that
when you've had a
building
building that's been vacant for a long time. It was a very generous offer. It was enormous. So from that point, he started looking around at at places that it could be housed. Now, the old public safety building was a former jail, courthouse. It had security measures in place. It was bounded by a creek, not in the right neighborhood, but at the same time, it had a lot of those things, and it needed to be rehabbed. It's an eyesore in that neighborhood.
Sure.
And maybe, just maybe, they could have made something out of it.
Right.
It turned out to be the wrong place. Residents weren't happy. They didn't like where it was going, which is fine, and that's good. And I think he had a really frank discussion with a couple residents, and he believed it to be also the wrong place in the end. But where it ended up, and where this whole conversation turned, was a building on Buffalo Avenue in the industrial part of town that had the space, that had the area, and it turned out, well, that's a wonderful spot for it. And it seems like everyone's unanimous in that situation, that it ended up that it could go there. So now it's up to everybody else involved to make those pieces, to put those pieces in place. But he started a discussion, he started a dialogue, moved it off the dime, stopped people from complaining about the issue, and started to solve the issue. And that's what he does.
Yeah.
He's about solving issues, and it's his background and experience that allows him to do that.
That plays to his role, as you said, as our advocate.
Sure.
So he's doing that already. He contributed to half the solution of that thing. So very cool. I'm concerned at this community and how they respond to the right or wrong information, or I heard this and I heard that. How do we get everybody on the right page for what each candidate represents, just to get the right word out. Social media, I don't get it. Everyone knows I'm not a Facebook guy. I think it's artificial communication. I think it's wrong for me to see someone in Home Depot, if I'm a Facebook friend of them, I know about them, but I really haven't even met them before. Give me a break. I don't like that. I think it's wrong, and so therefore I don't. But it's a big part of the way people do. How do you deal with the social media and get
Well,
this to your advantage?
social media has become an increasing part of the political process, for good and for bad. Okay, so we launched our Facebook page about a month and a half ago. Within 1 month, actually, I think it's been exactly a month, we have like 896 friends. Okay, they came out of the woodwork. It was unbelievable, and I don't think anyone's page that I've ever seen at a local level like this has been able to launch and have a successful startup as Judge Morinello,
which is his family.
Exactly. That's so funny. I mean, it's in fact, we had a message the other day when I said this is the second time in a week. We had a message the other day from a guy from who was living in Niagara Falls. He also said that you changed my family, you changed my life, my family's life, and my future generations' families. And I was like, well, that's a little far stretched. But, I mean, but at the same time, it was the same situation. Same situation. Someone came into drug court, and he gave them a second chance. And it changed the guy's life. I mean, so social media can be good and bad, and I'm going to talk about the bad in a second. And the bad is that anybody can write whatever the heck they want, whether it's true, false. They can say anything. They can say Craig Avery went to the moon last week. Oh, sorry, Craig, I didn't know you and
that's
okay. And planted a flag. And it doesn't, and people believe it because they read it somewhere, right? I read somewhere, they're saying, whenever someone starts the conversation with they're saying, that it came from Facebook. Okay,
Yeah.
so. John Serrato has an old Republican player who got kicked out of our party, okay, and basically excommunicated from the Republican side. And part of the reason I think John switched was because of his staffer who's pretty much pulling strings. His name's Rob Nichols. I don't know if you know Rob. If you ever bumped into him, you do. Yeah. Okay. Well,
so he got kicked out of your party.
Basically, he was. Yeah. I mean, he's chairman of the Lewiston Republican Committee. Now he is an active Democrat, and it's the same thing. It's like any which way the wind blows. Wherever they'll accept me, I'll go, right? And it's really sad because the guy is out there, he's writing stuff without his name on it. I know it's him. I've known him for a very long time. I mean, you can tell just by the grammar sometimes and some of the things that are written that it's Rob. Because and he's right, he writes stuff that when you don't put your name on something, Craig, it's a real, I think, cowardly thing to do. And so
this is Facebook.
Oh yeah, he's printing these articles on Facebook and doing, cartoons of this and that, and saying, taking whatever Judge Morinello says, twisting it into a way. And I'm going to use an example.
Or whether this is him or this is the Serrato campaign.
Sure, yeah. Well, but I'm pretty positive that it's coming from him because there's a lot of people that have commented on some of those things and those comments have come down. If he's not the administrator of the page, whatever, it's okay. But I'm about 99.9% sure where it's coming from.
But it's a campaign thing and no one's denouncing this.
Yeah, it's a campaign thing. No one's denouncing it. And with social media, okay,
right.
When you respond to something or you like something, it increases its worth on the page. Okay, so that means it gets more play and it kind of moves along. So not responding is not a good thing, but responding is also not a good thing either, because when you respond, you increase his negative message, which is silly and nonsensical. But when you don't respond, it almost seems like his negative message is right. So it's a kind of a little game. It's an interesting game. And he's okay at it, I guess. But he's a dirty player, and this is why people don't like politics. And we want to move into a different campaign. We don't want this to denigrate and to hurt our community, because we've had enough hurt as it is. Okay, this community, especially Niagara Falls, has been through a lot of bad decisions, a lot of misguided choices, a lot of bad politicians, and having political discourse that's not honest, truthful, and fair, makes it worse for the people that you're trying to represent. It doesn't help them in any way. And so, if they want to get into the weeds, they want to get into the mud, they can get into the mud. Okay? We're going to attack on issues. Okay? We're not going to personally go after John Soretto. We don't do that. We don't go after their families. But their style might be a little different. And when that happens, it is what it is. But he's in this for the right reasons, not for the wrong.
Can we count on you to give us little updates here? Let's see, it's April, so the election is November.
It's going to be a long year.
Wow. But meanwhile, I just get such a kick. I do see, Judge Morinello when he comes into places, and he just lights up the room. He's such a character.
He really does.
And he's not politicizing it. He's just a buddy of everybody. I get such a kick out of watching
It's
him.
really
As I
fun.
do when John Soretto watches him.
I mean,
I get such a kick out of him too, because he is so, he's just
Yeah.
he's a happy guy.
Yeah. Last night I went with
I
him.
like happy people.
Yeah, I know you like happy
Because
people.
I'm a real jerk.
Yeah, you are. No, not
So
really.
we need to surround with
You're the
opposites.
best.
Opposites attract.
There's no one better.
So
But last night we went to 3 events. He shows up, and I was going to drive. He goes, I'll drive. And so we're in the car, and I'm like, we got a long night in front of us. He goes, I've already been to 3. And I'm like, are you kidding? He goes, well, I was here, and then I went here, and then I went over there. I mean, he had been in, I think, every corner of the district yesterday. And it was like, it was 5 when he showed up to my house, or when he showed up to my office, actually. And we went to, then we went to North Tonawanda, then we came back to Niagara Falls, then we went to another event over here. I mean, it was crazy. So it was one of those, it was a fun day, but every day is like that with him. He wakes up in the morning and, he's a consumer. He goes out there and really enjoys being with people and meeting people and helping them. I mean, he anybody who has an issue, if they talk to him, he's going to figure out a way to solve it. And that's what he does. He just solves issues. And it's his whole, I guess it's just in his DNA. And some people are like that and some aren't.
cool. Well, good luck, man.
Thanks.
We hope to hear from you again. It was a
I
very
appreciate it,
informative
man.
session here.
Glad I could
And to all my friends at City Hall that work at City Hall with their little fight, I gave it to you on a silver platter. You're in it on your own. Good luck.